Although checkers can be seen as a simple game meant more for children than adults, it can still be used to help improve one's strategic thinking, and one should never abandon a tool, even if a new, fancier tool comes along. If you abandon things just because they're old, it narrows one's toolkit, and in the end, such thinking will cause everything to end up being a nail due to you only being left with a hammer. Greetings and welcome to Checkpoint Gaming. With this series of episodes, we will be going over how to play the game checkers. With checkers, which is also known as drafts, has been around for thousands of years with references to the game, or variants thereof, dating as far back as 3000 BCE, as seen with evidence of it being played by the ancient Egyptians. And with its worldwide presence, different versions can be found. With this series, we'll be using the version known as American checkers, which is also known as straight checkers, as our base due to the fact that, at the moment, our core talent pool is found within the United States, causing us to be the most familiar with that version. But with that said, we'll also be looking at other versions of the game as well later in this series. With the rules that we provide here, they might not cover every possible situation that can arise, so we'll leave it up to the players on how to address the matter. And if something arises during a tournament, then turn to a tournament controller or referee as a means of arbitrating the situation. When playing the game, it is done between two players with the standard game board being divided into 64 squares laid out in an 8x8 grid with the squares alternating in color between light and dark, with the borders typically being a neutral color. In tournaments, the squares are to consist of green for the dark squares and white, off-white, or cream for the light squares, although a lot of sets have the squares consist of black and white or black and red. The standard size of the squares should be between 4.5 and 5 centimeters across. The game also comes with a total of 24 playable pieces, which are also known as checkers or men, are uniform in nature as seen with them being flat, disc-like, and self-crowning with their diameter being that of 3 to 4 centimeters across with a thickness between that of 5 to 9 millimeters and are equally divided into two colors, consisting of light and dark. Each player also receives 12 pieces of one particular color. With the light-colored pieces, they typically consist of white, while the dark-colored pieces typically consist of black. With that said, some sets use red instead, thus causing the pieces to be red and black or white and red as the respective light and dark-colored pieces. It is also possible for other colors to be used instead, as long as they are distinct from the colors used for the board squares. When setting up the board, it is placed between the players with the lower right-hand corner of the board being a light-colored square. With the corner squares found in front of each player, the lower left-hand corner is known as the single corner, while the square found in the lower right-hand corner is known as the double corner. Before play begins, when initially setting up the pieces, they're placed onto the first 3 ranks found in front of each player, occupying only the dark-colored squares of the board, thus creating a staggered pattern. This setup also creates 2 empty rows found between the 2 players. With the row that is found nearest to the player, it is known as their home row, and is also known as the king row or crown head. The first player to perform a move during the game is the one who is controlling the dark-colored pieces, with the dark-colored pieces alternating between the players between games. On the player's turn, they will move just a single piece that is capable of moving at a time, and once a player has moved one of their pieces, their turn is over. The game's objective is to have one player either capture all of their opponent's pieces or to confine them so that said opponent has no more possible moves to make due to them being blocked in. The first player who is able to achieve either option will win the game, but if neither player is able to do this, then the game ends in a draw. It is also possible for a player to resign or forfeit. And with tournament play, one can find a rule that sees 40 moves being performed without a capture and a repeat position occurring 3 times resulting in a draw. With everything now set up, the players will need to decide who is going to be using the dark-colored pieces, thus going first. To determine this, it can be done through a variety of different ways, which we'll leave up to the players. In subsequent games, players will alternate on who will go first by handing off who is using the dark-colored pieces. When it comes to that of piece movement, they consist of standard moves and capturing moves. They are also never allowed to leave the square color that they were initially placed, causing all movements to be done diagonally, either left or right, depending upon the situation. And the standard piece can only move in a forward direction toward the opposing player's home row and into an unoccupied dark-colored square. With the performing of a standard move, it has to be done into an adjacent square that is open and of the same color as the square the piece is occupying. Crowned and uncrowned pieces can only move one square at a time unless it is engaging in capturing. And when engaging in capturing, it can only jump over a single piece at a time. With the performing of a capture, which is also known as a jump, it is when a player has one of their pieces found in an adjacent square to that of an opposing piece, and the square found on the other side of the opposing piece is empty, thus allowing said player to move their piece over the opposing piece and into the vacant square. This counts as the player's move with the captured piece being removed from the board. When it comes to that of jumping, uncrowned pieces are able to capture both crowned and uncrowned pieces. But with that said, uncrowned pieces are unable to capture backwards, even if the opposing piece meets all of the other requirements. On top of this, a piece is unable to jump over an empty square. And when a player is presented with an opportunity to engage in a capture, they will have to perform said capture. So capturing moves are an essential action in the game, and if a player is presented with multiple options to engage in a capture during a given turn, they can decide which capturing path with which to engage in, even if the selected capturing path won't capture the most amount of opposing pieces. On top of everything that has just been said, if the situation presents itself where a player is able to jump over multiple opposing pieces, they will have to engage in said action as long as the opposing pieces are along a diagonal or zigzag line that allows the capturing piece to continue moving forward. This process will continue until there are no more opposing pieces available to be jumped or the capturing piece enters the home row of the opposing player. In either case, movement stops. And with every jump that was performed during this multiple jumping process, it will see each piece that was jumped over be removed from the board at the end of the turn. Accompanying this, a single piece will be unable to be jumped more than once during the capturing process. The capturing piece also can't jump over its own pieces, even if it's strategically advantageous for it to do so. Once reaching the home row of the opposing player, the uncrowned piece will end its move and become a king. But even when the piece gets crowned, it is unable to continue capturing until play returns to the controlling player. So even if another capturing move exists once a piece gets promoted to that of a king, it will have to end its movement in that given promotional square. It is worth noting that this only applies to that of uncrowned pieces. If the piece was already crowned when it enters the home row of the opposing player, it is able to continue to engage in capturing since it can't get promoted for a second time. However, if all of the adjacent squares are occupied and none of the pieces are able to be jumped, then the affected piece will be considered blocked, thus unable to be engaged in any form of move. If a player is in a situation where they either overlook a capture or decides not to engage in it, the opposing player has 3 options to choose from on how to proceed. The first option is to force the player to take back their initial move and to perform the capture instead. The second option is to remove the piece that would have performed the jump from the board. This is known as a huff, and it doesn't count as a regular move. And the third option is to just let the move stand and not have the affected piece be captured. As addressed earlier, once one of the player's pieces reaches the home row of their opponent, it will get promoted to that of a king. This will occur regardless of if the piece jumps into the row or simply moves into it. Once crowned, it can move in any direction the player desires, thus allowing it to move forward or backwards diagonally. In the following turn after it was crowned, the piece will be able to perform a jump from the home row if an opposing piece exists to allow for a jump. And if the crowned piece is capable of performing multiple jumps, it can do so in either direction. With the crowning of a piece, it can be done by either player by placing another piece of the same color atop of the played piece, ensuring that the 2 pieces lock together. And if there aren't any captured pieces from the set being used during play, a piece from another set is able to be used to perform the crowning. During the game, players can record the game through the use of piece notation, something that is necessary for tournament play. With the number of the squares, only the dark squares are counted. The numbers run from 1 through 32, starting with the upper left-hand dark square possessing 1, and the numbering system is in relation to that of each player's perspective. So space number 1 for one player is number 32 for the other. It is worth noting that with these numbers, they're not actually printed upon the board. With the recording of a given move, the player is to simply write down the square that their piece starts off in and which square it is moved to. So with that said, that is what you need to know about checkers. With that taken care of, we can start talking about tournaments. If you like this episode, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode, and happy gaming.